Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy this video, we invite those of you who haven't yet done so, to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the notification icon, to be notified when the next one is uploaded. We'd also like to urge those of you who haven't yet done so, to sign our online petition for an inquiry into the BBC and Channel 4's coverage of Lewis Hamilton and Abu Dhabi, which we have amended to include Gary Lineker's sacking by the BBC. A link has been provided in the description. If you are on X, then please repost our tweet. Thank you. In expressing his shock at what he called a pretty hardcore penalty at the Italian GP, Lewis Hamilton has highlighted a disturbing trend that our highly valued subscriber Umbrella noted early last season about F1 doubling down on race manipulation. This manipulation is something that James Atkins of Fixed has also documented succinctly in several of his videos. So, as far as we are concerned, there is no disputing the fact that F1 have doubled down on manipulating races in concert with the FIA since Abu Dhabi. Umbrella noted that last year's Miami GP was manipulated for the benefit of Lando Norris and McLaren because it was a home race of sorts for their American CEO Zak Brown, whose esteemed guest was the then presidential candidate and now 47th President, Donald Trump. So, it was convenient for all parties concerned that McLaren's then lead driver was able to take the lead during a fortuitous safety car period and win the race. This reaffirmed that McLaren have now joined Max Verstappen and Red Bull in the inner circle of those for whom the stewards bend the rules. We have long proclaimed that their emergence as the class leader is their reward for the support they provided in whitewashing the Abu Dhabi fiasco and defending Max Verstappen's 2024 title retention at the expense of their own drivers. Last year, the FIA switched their support to McLaren mid-season to engineer the perception of a close title race between Lando and Max, but the scheme ultimately backfired, because Lando was unable to mount anything resembling a credible challenge, as he ended up setting the record for losing the title by the widest margin ever for the lead driver of the winning car. This year, as revealed by their chief narrator Martin Brundle in pre-season, the objective was to set the stage for Lando to ascend the ladder of greatness that he had put him on last season, in the hope that he would replace Sir Lewis in the eyes of the British, or Max to have the possibility of sneaking a fifth title as the battling McLaren drivers took points off each other. But unfortunately, the gassed-up Max and his busy mate did not have the skill set to deliver as the underrated Oscar exposed their well-documented frailties. The Aussie champion in waiting was able to grab the bull by the horns, all puns intended, and confirm what we have always proclaimed to the whole world, that when it comes to the pressure of close-quarters racing, the Belgian Dutch folds like a Belgian waffle. His Belgian-British busy mate has long established a similar propensity to fold like a Belgian waffle, as he is now on course to demonstrate yet again that it takes more than driving a championship-winning car to become the driver's champion. So, with that in mind, let us now show you how Umbrella's observations from last year have been confirmed by this year's results and the Hamilton penalty. The season opened with the chaotic weather-afflicted race in Australia, where the gassed-up Lando won the lottery of finishing first, as Max moaned that his defanged car was uncompetitive, despite finishing second. However, in the second race at the Chinese GP, Oscar bounced back to claim victory as Lando finished second, while Max finished where he started, a distant fourth. This appeared to reaffirm his views that his car was uncompetitive, and ours that when forced into close-quarters racing, he has zero skills. Well, lo and behold, in the third race in Japan, which is of course the home of Red Bull's engine supplier, Honda, Max's allegedly uncompetitive Red Bull took a commanding pole position, and he went on to win an even more commanding lights to flag victory. This was the first manifestation of Umbrella's observation from the previous year, that F1 now manipulate races to benefit certain teams when they have home advantage. How else can you explain the sudden and fortuitous injection of pace into the reportedly uncompetitive Red Bull? So, with the three leading contenders sharing a victory each in the first three races, the stage was set for fulfilling Brundle's narrative. Narrative being the operative word, because F1 is now all about narratives rather than genuine competition with all its unpredictability. But they had overlooked Oscar, who went on to put both his overrated challengers to the sword as he ran away with victory in the next 3 races, to establish a commanding lead in the title race. Lando memorably and publicly became overcome by self-doubt as his busy mate dramatically imploded in a fit of rage after losing out to Oscar during an intense duel at the start in Saudi Arabia, and the FIA failed to rule in his favor. Perhaps they were dissuaded from doing so because they were in the Middle East, the home turf of McLaren's main investors. The third race was in Miami, which Umbrella had noted was papaya territory, so the FIA were again dissuaded from interfering in his favor when he repeatedly locked horns with the McLaren drivers. Surprise, surprise, in the following race at Emilia-Romagna, the uncompetitive Red Bull suddenly found pace again as Max claimed his second victory to keep Project 2025 alive, while the Ferrari drivers who were not in the inner circle lost out in their home race. The uncompetitive Red Bull went missing in the next 3 races as Max's performance dropped reminiscent of doped-up athletes, as victory was shared between the McLaren drivers and George Russell, who has since gone missing himself. So, it was only to be expected that Max would make a strong showing in the next race at the Red Bull home ground in Austria. Unfortunately, when your luck runs out, fecal matter happens. His strong qualifying pace came to naught, as unexpected events during Q3 left him starting in P7, and we all know how bad he is when he is amongst others. He crashed out on his opening lap, and that was all she wrote for Austria, where the McLaren drivers finished first and second. In the following race in Britain, Oscar was cruising to victory, when Max outbraked himself after a safety car restart, and the FIA expeditiously used that opportunity to penalize Oscar and grant victory to Lando reminiscent of Abu Dhabi. After some sterling driving, Oscar recovered to second, but the team rejected his request for Lando to yield the lead back to him, to rectify the grossly unfair FIA penalty, thereby indicating their willingness to capitulate to Liberty Media's desire to close the gap between the two drivers to give the appearance of a closely contested title race, and grant victory to the home driver. Oscar bounced back with victory in Belgium, forcing the team to again rein him back in Hungary, using team orders which disadvantaged him in favor of his blundering teammate. On this occasion, Oscar, who was leading after Lando had performed his signature move of going backwards at the start, was denied his request to go on to a strategy that ended up giving a recovering Lando victory. The Australian media was aghast at what they rightly deemed to be Oscar being sabotaged by his team to allow Lando to close the gap again. But the gods of F1 made their displeasure known in the following race as Lando didn't finish in the Netherlands as Oscar cruised to victory ahead of a suspiciously resurgent Max and his junior teammate. How convenient that Max suddenly found some pace in his home race. So, as you can see, there is ample evidence to confirm Umbrella's claim that F1 find ways to manipulate home races for the benefit of their anointed. It is therefore not surprising that at the Italian GP, the Ferrari drivers appeared to make a resurgence during free practice to give the Tifosi something to get excited about, but ultimately ended up 4th and 5th on the grid, with a suspiciously resurgent Max leading the way ahead of the two McLarens. Critically, Lewis Hamilton was conveniently handed a rather harsh and unmerited 5-place grid drop and points on his super license, several hours after the end of the Dutch GP no less. As unmerited as the penalty was if it had been handed out during the race, then it would have been nullified by the fact that he did not finish, and imposing it after, gave them the option of applying one that would massively impact his home race, because we all know that Sir Lewis in the hunt is a dangerous animal. This unfair penalty was a clear sign of how they are afraid of what he can do, despite the way his inaugural Ferrari season has gone to date. Forza Ferrari.